And I give the call to the member for Warringah.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I move the motion relating to paid parental leave in the terms in which it appears on the notice paper. This motion outlines a very important need. We need a more generous shared paid parental leave scheme of no less than 26 weeks, lowering the cost of early childhood education and improving access to paid carers leave for parents of 6 children. In February 2021, I moved a similar motion, and disappointingly, despite a change of government, there has been a lack of progress on these key issues for young Australian families. Closing the gender pay gap and facilitating women's participation in the workforce must be a priority. At the recent Jobs and Skills Summit, there was broad agreement from unions to business councils of Australia to advocacy groups that to increase women's participation into the workforce, we need to improve paid parental leave and make childcare more affordable. And yet, as a response, we saw a lot of other policy move, but in response to this very key ask, what we got from the Prime Minister was we will think about it and not now, or let's do an inquiry. And that is, with respect, not good enough. Women and parents are tired of waiting. There is a strong economic case for these changes. Equity Economics has estimated that the cumulative impact of proposed changes like these in this motion could increase GDP by 4.1% by 2050, or some $166 billion. If Australia lifts female participation to equivalent to men, it would increase GDP by 8.7%, or some $353 billion by 2050. We don't just need to look to migration to increase and reduce skill shortages. We need to ensure women in Australia have the ability to participate in the workforce. There's a health imperative as well in these measures, because we know, and I presented a petition last week in relation to the World Health Organisation guidelines and the national breastfeeding strategy goals of children having the opportunity to be exclusively breastfed for 6 months. And yet we don't have a paid parental leave scheme that even facilitates that. So a fairer, more widely accessible paid parental leave scheme in tune with 21st century families, we know working families, working parents, is urgently needed. The current paid parental leave scheme was introduced in 2009. The makeup of families has changed. The new scheme must take into account all families, double income, stay-at-home dads, stay-at-home mums, and far greater proportion of single-parent families. We lag behind developed countries. At the moment, best practice, the average in OECD is 55 weeks, and yet we have 18 weeks to the primary carer and 2 weeks for the other parent. At the last Father's Day, the Grattan Institute released research showing that shared paid parental leave not only boosts mothers' earnings, but it can boost our entire GDP. By increasing the entitlement to 26 weeks shared between parents, it would cost some $600 million per year, but it would return $900 million per year, as well as boosting a mother's lifetime earnings of $30,000. Now, time and time again, we come back to this place and we hear the gender pay gap is not narrowing. Women are still behind. And yet here is the measure. This is how you start to narrow that pay gap. And so don't put it on the shelf. Don't put it away for another inquiry. Actually act upon it. At the moment, you have a system that has no incentive for sharing, and we know men's participation in parental leave is incredibly low. And that's because of the way the system is set up. It is income tested on the women's income, the mother's income. We need to make sure that it's not just a cap of $150,000 per year on the birth mother, but it must be a joint household income, a couple's income, to encourage fathers into caring roles by improving their long-term bond, and it will improve their long-term bond with children, and increase their participation in unpaid work in households and having an appreciation around the world and the caring. But provide primary carers with that opportunity to return to their career sooner and more sustainably. We know this is so incredibly important to facilitate women's participation in the workforce. We know childcare fees have increased some 41% in recent years. The Productivity Commission last year has found that a massive block is the cost of childcare. The government is talking about increasing that, improving that on 1 July 2023. I say make it 1 January 2023. Bring it, but the changes are needed now.